we'll figure that out. So anyway,
We'll do something.
stand by. Uh, what the hell? We have a plethora, a cornucopia, a whole bunch of watches and warnings and advisories ranging from coastal flooding and gale warnings to high wind warnings and wind advisories to flood watches. And let's not forget that we also have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up in places not so relatively not that far away from the coastal areas. We're going to be talking all about that and so much more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. And we are back.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
and you know, we're on 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and we rearrange our schedules a lot in order to pull off the show on a regular basis, and that includes rearranging family time and that kind of thing. So it's nice to have a few days off every once in a while when the weather is slow. Unfortunately, it didn't exactly work out that way considering that here we are on the 18th of April, 2022, and we're dealing with yeah, for this time of year, this is not too shabby an event that's going on. This fast-moving nor'easter.
Is it really a nor'easter? I called. I put a special statement up on my Facebook page
Yes, you
today
did.
about this, and I decided I'd call it a coast hugging storm. It's not really.
I called
You
it
know.
both. I called it both. A coast-hugging
Yeah.
nor'easter.
Okay. All right. To me, a nor'easter is something that's a little bit further offshore. This thing looks like it's going to go right up, literally right. I mean, like right over the tri-state area, and then move northward up toward Albany and into Quebec. But may I? Is are nor'easters really rare at this time of the year, Joe?
No, they're not actually. In fact,
Well,
I can recall a number of times back in the, let's call it the 1970-2000 cycle, where we always had these cutoff lows that would develop in April and even into the middle part of May, where you get these big lows that are offshore and we're sort of on the edge of them and we sit in a lot of clouds and a raw northeast wind and occasionally one of them would bring big rain events, but they seem to have, you know, in the last number of years, there seem to have been be fewer of those types of systems for the April-May time frame. So I don't know. This is kind of interesting. This actually, to me, when you look at the map, when you look at the setup, when you look at the upper trough and the way the whole jet is aligned, it actually looks like something that should have happened over a month ago, as opposed to right now.
well, one network news anchor led off tonight with the comment, "Rare April
No,
nor'easter,"
it's not
and I
rare.
looked at this and I said, really? Now, maybe this anchor was making reference to the fact that it was going to snow to a significant degree, and then this late in the season, I won't exactly say rare. It doesn't happen very often, but but the bottom line of it is that, as you just said, Joe, we can have nor'easters at this time of the year. They are not too unusual. Now, if this were July or August, I'd say, yeah, rare
Well,
nor'easter, because we rarely ever see nor'easters in July and August. But April, no, it's
that
not.
would
It's
be
not rare at
that
all.
that would be that well when actually I think you could make a case. We've had non-tropical systems that have behaved like this, but obviously in July or August you're not going to have snow in in inland places. I could recall a few times though where we've had waves that have developed into these sort of non-tropical blows, and we get into some wind and rain, and then we're sitting there thinking, is it going to be tropical? Is it not going to become tropical? Or is it going to become tropical when it's further offshore? Blah, blah, blah. But in terms of the upper air setup, you're not going to have an upper air setup like this in July or August, obviously. So,
Absolutely,
uh,
absolutely. And and you say in general now, with reference to the Easter season, because it is a movable feast, that when Easter falls in late March, yeah, there's a chance you could see some significant snowfall still. But when you get Easter coming, past the middle of April, you'd expect that you'd see more of a warm weather pattern, like let's say 80s. And remember that year in 1976, we had 96 degrees on this day, the 18th of April in 1976. And here we are now talking about the complete flip flop of snow, and not just a few flurries, but indeed, there are going to be some places in central New York tonight, Binghamton and Ithaca and Oneonta, which is where my lovely wife went to school to get her atmospheric science degree. They're going to be clobbered with 8, 10, 12 inches of snow. And up in the Adirondacks, for goodness sake,
well, try the
they could see
cats.
as much as,
Try the
50,
Catskills too.
the Catskills, too. Yeah, well, this is crazy for this late in the season. I think the latest that we've ever had accumulating snow or measurable snow at Central Park is April the 23rd. And I was thinking, Joe, if this system were maybe 100, 150 miles further east, there might be just enough cold air to allow for the white stuff to fall even in Midtown Manhattan. But that's
Well,
not going to be the case.
if the upper low were much further southeast, this would be a whole different. This would be the way you would probably able to pull it off. You get that whole upper low
Right,
to come down because this time of year, when you look at the body of the winter, if you've got a relatively normal atmosphere going on in terms of where the jet streams are and the troughs and the ridges and all the rest of it, you you look at the different things that are going on and you realize that it's rare that all of them are lining up are set up in a perfect alignment. So if something's out of line and one part of the atmosphere is out of line, it might be compensated by another part of the atmosphere being in line. This time of year, everything's got to line up perfectly. And in this particular case, and cases that you do see in April, oftentimes it's really more about what's going on upstairs and whether that mixes from the top down, which is what you're seeing tonight in Pennsylvania. You're seeing it in Western Maryland. You're seeing it in Northwest Virginia. Johnny Quest messaged me about a half an hour ago where he is. Now he's up at 3,000 feet in Northwestern Virginia in the mountains there. He had 7 inches.
wow,
That's not too shabby. Uh, and
yeah,
and since I saw snow here back in the second week of March, and well, I'm pretty far south. Uh, it's not really a big surprise. But my point is that in all of this and what's going on tonight, it's really about what's going on upstairs, and that's all mixing down with vertical motions. You can see it when you look at the surface profile of temperatures on either side of where the precip is going on. Temperatures are in the 40s and even in the lower 50s, but where it's precipitating hard, where you're getting all that vertical motion, it's in the middle, lower and middle 30s, and it gets there fairly
right,
quickly. And then as soon as it stops, the temperatures go back up. So it's again it's a top down event. So the upper low is too far north and west for the coastal areas, but not too far north and west for elevated areas in Pennsylvania. I've been focusing on the maybe about 1,500 feet or higher are probably going to do pretty well with this with snow amounts from what I see. From northern Pennsylvania on up into the Catskills, the Adirondacks, and through central New York. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we're going to see some foot plus amounts out of this heavy wet snow. Even though it's a fast event, it's 8 to 10 hours done. And we should also not ignore the fact there's going to be some rather strong winds when that low moves up. The gradient gets very tight. We've got gale warnings up. We have wind advisories up. We have storm warnings and high wind warnings up for southeastern New England. We have coastal flooding. Coastal flood warnings are up for the air waters surrounding New York City and Long Island, also from southern New Jersey down to Delaware. This is for this time of year. This is a pretty impressive. It seems to be going to be a pretty impressive event.
It's going to be impressive tomorrow morning because for a lot of people here in the Hudson Valley who, when they head out to work or to school, they usually have to travel on one of the numerous roadways which are immediately adjacent to a body of water, the Hutchinson River Parkway, the Bronx River Parkway, the Sprain Brook Parkway, and every single one of those are going to have flooding concerns tomorrow morning. So if you are watching in the Hudson Valley, you already know the drill. You know that you're going to have to, before you go to bed tonight, set your alarm clock at least 15 to 30 minutes earlier than normal and get out on the roadways earlier than normal because it is a mess. It always is. At least and Joe, for all of the years that I commuted to work on those parkways, I always tell people, it's not the winter. No, the snowstorms, yeah, they're terrible, and the ice storms occasionally that we get. I said, but the absolute worst for the commuter, which is a year-round thing, are these bouts of heavy rainfall because the roadways, as I said, especially those that are immediately adjacent to those bodies of water, just cannot take it. The Bronx River Parkway, the Hutchinson River Parkway at the they changed the exit numbers, but it used to be exit 12, Lincoln Avenue on
Right.
the Hutch. It turns into a lake.
Yeah.
Literally, it turns into a lake whenever you get more than 2 inches of rain. It's horrible, but that's what people are going to have to deal with tomorrow morning. There are going to be numerous problems on the roadways in terms of puddling, in terms of standing water, low-lying areas. And the coastal sections, Mamaroneck, Rye, these places down by the water, New Rochelle, coastal flooding certainly going to be an issue tomorrow morning. So it's going to be we don't have the snow. Admittedly, we don't have the 6 and the 8 and the 10 and 12-inch snowfall amounts, but it's still not going to be a walk in the park tomorrow morning for those places that are just getting plain rain. It's going to be a rough morning tomorrow.
Yes. So we're gonna dive into all of this. Before I do that, just want to welcome everybody on the chat board tonight. Hope that wait for it now. Here we go. Hope your Easter was exceptional
Excellent.
or,
Oh,
or
I thought it was
excellent
excellent.
or extraordinary or even existential. Tonight's show dedicated to the great Vincent Price, who played Egghead. So let's get to
Right.
this. Let me bring up.
Billy the Kid. Wait a minute. Let me just. Billy the
Oh,
Kid.
is the end of the world
Billy.
here? Hold on. If it's Billy the Kid, is the apocalypse here? They forgot to tell me. Is it here? Okay, go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
but I just went into this dissertation. He's saying what body of water lies next to those roadways? Billy the Kid. Hutchinson River Parkway. Bronx
Bronx
River
River
Parkway.
Parkway.
Sprain Brook
Brook
Parkway.
Parkway.
Do you get it? I mean, do you get what I'm saying here?
And of course, all those will be wiped out by the apocalypse anyway. Uh, the
Yes.
the Bronx River will become the Bronx Ocean. The Hudson River will become the Hudson Water. The Hutchinson River will become the Hutchinson Waterfalls, and the Sprain Brook will just become, basically a drip by the time that's all done. Okay. Uh, as I said, welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and hope again your holidays were good. Happy Passover, happy Easter, even though it is all belated, but the spirit is still there. So let's take a look. Got a close up here. Let's look first off at watches and warnings that are up, and we've got We've got winter storm warnings. Northeastern Pennsylvania. Scranton is not in the winter storm warning. It's in the winter weather advisory area. And there's actually quite a few counties west of Allentown towards State College and points northward and southward that are in winter weather advisories. And that, by the way, extends down into West Virginia. We actually have even on the Maryland, West Virginia side, Western Maryland. I saw some pictures of Garrett County this afternoon in Western Maryland, and that's always that's usually a snow hotspot. But what was interesting to me was that I was looking for clues where the precip was starting out, whether we were talking about that top-down mixing, Joe, and just judging by the observations that I've been looking at late this afternoon in this evening, that cold air is mixing down, and the upper trough still hasn't completely swung around yet. Now that I think actually bodes well for snow lovers further north. So the areas in northeastern Pennsylvania, but then when you get up in central New York, and then from the Catskills on northward, you'll notice that it's all just west. It's all west of Albany. So we're talking about areas that are west of the Hudson, but those winter storm warnings extend up into the Adirondacks. Now, further south, of course, we've got these high wind warnings and wind advisories. Of course, the high wind warnings in southeastern Massachusetts here, out on the Cape, and there'll probably be some gusts of 50 or 60 miles an hour there. We have those wind advisories extending down through Long Island, through coastal Connecticut. I think southern Westchester's in a wind advisory, if I remember correctly. And then
Yes.
also down the New
Yes.
Jersey counties, the coastal counties are in it. You see that there are, by the way, remind me, do we have a full moon or we just had a full moon?
We had a full moon on Saturday.
Okay,
However,
where's the peak
however,
tides?
however, because of the fact there's a tidal lag, the times of highest or greatest tides do not coincide with the full moon. They always come 1 to 2 days later. So actually, we might be seeing the highest tides now.
Right, with the
How do you
cycle
like them
here.
apples?
Yes. So that's
With
where,
this cycle, yeah.
right. So we have coastal flooding warnings and advisories clear down to Cape May to the Delaware and also into the coastal Delaware. We've got flood watches for rains in eastern Pennsylvania, extending through much of northern New Jersey. So basically north and west of I-95, all under a flood watch. So a little bit of everything for everybody. And again, because the track is, as we both point out here, you're taking a low that's basically tracking right up the immediate coastline and going north-northeast, maybe passing over or just east of New York City into western Connecticut and then up into western Mass and Vermont. That track, if this were if this were a month ago, it would still, maybe the outcome would be the same. Uh, Perhaps there would be a larger area of snow to contend with, and maybe that snow area would be further east. Maybe along the coast, the outcome might wind up being the same. But uh, nonetheless, I mean, we are, this low is going to do what it's going to do, and it's moving quick, and that's good. It's 8 hours worth in and out and done. And I'm looking at the satellite loop, Joe. When it was on the visible, like this kind of caught my eye, but it's a little hard to see. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but you certainly could see it on the enhancement. But there's this strip of bright white clouds right on the edge of the enhancement there. And then you see it right, when you go to sunset, it shows up pretty easily. But I was impressed that I was able to pick out those bright white clouds in detail, that strip, while we were still in daylight. So there's a nice little arm of energy that's swinging around at the moment and heading up the coast.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised too with the fact that there was no mention of any, and the Storm Prediction Center did not have us even in general thunderstorm activity. The lifted index is, marginal. It's a +1. You want to see lower values for significant or possible thunderstorm activity, but still, from the sheer intensity of the storm and the fact that it's coming right toward us and right over us, in the wee hours of the morning, I still wouldn't rule out the possibility of maybe hearing a rumble or two of thunder, a little bit of low top convection developing out ahead of that system. Although, again, we don't have anything the nearest possible severe activity is confined basically down near the coastline of North Carolina. So,
Well,
what we're looking at, yeah, what we're looking at tonight is just basically heavy downpours or downpours, moderate to heavy, maybe occasional spurts of torrential rain. And when you squeeze, I mean, you look at it and say, well, what's the big deal? Like 1 inch or 1.5 inches. Yeah, it's not a big deal usually, unless you try to squeeze all of that in within a time span of about 4 to 6 or 5 to 7 hours. Then it becomes problematic, and that's what we're looking at for the overnight. Now, is that map that you just put up?
Well, I
There,
was
Joe?
just going to say SPC watches this show, as you know, and they just as soon as you said that, they had the map ready to go, and there it is. Yeah, they have the general thunderstorms now pushed northward.
That was not the case. That was not the case a few hours ago.
No,
That was not.
no, they must have they updated they updated this at 4:22. Okay, so
Haha.
they must have anticipated. They probably sat around and said, on the Joe and Joe weather show tonight, they're going to mention general thunderstorm activity up to New York City to southern New England, so we better redraw our maps. They do still have two small areas of marginal risk in eastern North Carolina, and also in the along the Florida East Coast, from central down all the way down to the western part of the Keys. Otherwise, the rest of the country is pretty quiet.
If you look,
it would have been funnier if they updated it while the show was on. But just real quick while I got the
I mean,
map up. No, I'm just ready.
if you looked at my statement that I put up on my Facebook page, that was 3 o'clock this afternoon, and I checked and I said, gee, I was surprised. I said, maybe they could have
No.
pushed it as far north as northern Jersey or Long Island. And sure enough, there it is. But I did not see that map until you just put it up. So
Now,
obviously it was updated.
how many times have they done this to me where I'm sitting here waiting because I publish in the morning. I wait for SPC when severe weather is going to be an issue to see what they're going to do, and I hit the button, and usually within 10 or 20 minutes they'll put out a new forecast and they'll change everything. So it's happened so many times. Even when they're not supposed to put an update out, they'll put an update out just to screw with my head. So anyway, we love you
I,
guys and
I,
gals at SPC. Just so you know.
yes, there's not a knock on anybody down there. You guys are the experts. As I said before, we're just GPs, general practitioners. James H. is going snow chasing on the road tonight, Joe. He's heading to the Binghamton, New York area. Good luck, James. I do hope you have good tires, because this is the case where we're not dealing with up in the central part of New York State. We're not dealing with the puffy, powdery type of snow. We're dealing with the slick, slippery type of snow. And when you get a whole lot of it, as they will have in places like Horseheads, New York,
Right.
which I used to do the weather for, or Binghamton, that area, the leather stocking district of central New York. That's, if you're going to be doing any chasing, make sure you're very careful on the roadways, because you could very easily slip and slide off the roadways with this type of pattern. Joe, the temperatures in places like Binghamton, for example, or Oneonta, or Ithaca, whatever, these places are going to get hammered with heavy snow. The temperature, the ambient air temperature, is not going to be really too far from 32. They
No.
may 29, 30, 30, 31. I mean, it's not going to be a cold. It's going to be cold enough for the white stuff, but it's going to be that clingy type of snow. I suspect also that well, I don't have any leaves on my trees or
Big
even buds yet
a lot
where
a
I
lot
am. So they
a lot of the folks, a few folks mentioned to me that I talked to and messaged around today in conversations that I was reading, that Chuck Cardillo, for example, was saying up where he is in the Catskills. Now he's between 2,000 and 3,000 feet. So he says that they're just starting to bud. Okay, the buds are just
Yeah.
starting to get going. And by the way, I've got the digital snow forecast map up on the screen, and they've got a 12 print for a spot that's just north of Binghamton, so right off of 81. And if you're driving up that way, I suppose you could take 17, but just be careful, okay? Because as soon as you get into Sullivan County and points west, it's gonna deteriorate. You can see the amounts go down. Northeastern PA, there's a lot of 6-inch plus amount shadings here on the map, but a lot of it's going to depend on elevation. So, from valley to mountain to valley is going to be big differences. And the amounts kind of tailed off a bit, several inches extending down into West Virginia. Now, it's not catching the snow that has already fallen during the day. In fact, if you go far enough south here, a lot of this, if you start to go south of Harrisburg, most of it is done with. But the main area of focus tonight is going to be up further northeast, and you can also see some higher amounts north of I-90 in the Adirondacks. Got some pockets here of a foot plus. It's all about whether it mixes down. That really, at the end of the day, it's about watching observations hour by hour and seeing what they're doing. The models aren't going to really tell you very much um, other than the obvious. And there's too much going on in the upper atmosphere. You need to focus on what's going on in front of you tonight if you are, trying to figure out just exactly how much places are going to wind up with.
Yes.
And here's
We'll
the
see.
and here's the radar. Now take a look. There is some, I'm wondering, that's either, if it's not a thunderstorm that right now moving out of northern Delaware toward Philadelphia, there is a nice big red uh, patch there. So that's part of that arm that is moving around. I bet you if you pull up the F-Gen, Joe, I bet you're going to find that there's probably some pretty good F-Gen that's swinging through. So
I was
this,
I was expecting to see a lot of FGen or Omega with this, but I was actually disappointed. It really didn't look like anything. I mean, truly. I mean, it's there, but it's
it's
not
not
something that's like
crazy.
tremendously dynamic.
Yeah, I didn't
No, it's
look
not
at it.
really, not really, it's not really all that crazy. I mean, I was expecting a lot more out of that, but yeah, say there's enough forcing in the atmosphere for you to consider that there may very well be some lightning and thunder there overnight tonight.
Well, there certainly is some big precip that extends from there down into eastern Maryland and around the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area right now. So all of that is lifting up northeastward. So this is the area that's going to wind up eventually just getting into that area that we showed you on the snow map in northeastern New York and I'm sorry, northeastern Pennsylvania and on up into the Catskills and then up along I-81 and that whole patch there. Uh, that that arm's going to get in there as the upper low and the trough is swinging around. So that's why I think the max amounts. That's why they're being forecasted the way they are in terms of what the weather service offices have put out. By the way,
It's you see that it's also dependent upon what model you're looking at. Now, the GFS, yeah, it looks somewhat dynamic. I'm looking now at the 18Z NAM, and now they have the lines or the contours are so closely wrapped together they just look like one gigantic purple blob, and that blob, Joe, is moving over us by 4Z by midnight 1, 2, 3 o'clock. So if you go by that by sheer FGen, that would be the time frame from about 1 to 3 or 2 to 4 a.m. That's when we're right in the thick of things, and that's probably when we're going to be seeing the heaviest doses of precipitation. If you go again, take this by face value, the 12. Now this is the NAM 12. Let me look at the NAM 3 kilometer for a moment. Yeah, that too. See now this didn't show up
why don't you
quite
hold on?
as robust.
Why don't I since you have it up and then I can prep the upper air map. Hang on a second. Why don't
This
you?
was not as robust on the 12Z as it is right now.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Joe. Just give me 1 second. Well, click the wrong button on my mouse. Why don't you go ahead and share that?
I'm going to do it right now. There we go. Oh, my sister's is sending me a message right now on Facebook Messenger. She wants to know how long our family's been doing the bunny cake. I'll get back to her later. um, so yeah, so here we are.
Yeah, it's a
This
little.
is
Is it
what
me?
you're
Hold
saying.
on, hang on a second. I don't know why that is. It's like a little out of focus for some reason. That's weird.
That happens sometimes with me too. That it's a little fuzzy.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. All
I
right.
don't know
Well, you
either,
know
but
what? I don't have. Yeah, I don't know why, and I can't figure that out at the moment. But we'll just have to work with it. Go ahead.
so right now it's we're at 0Z. We're at 8 o'clock in the evening. And what did you say? Where did you say that area that area of red was right about here, right
Yeah,
down.
like between Wilmington and Philadelphia.
All right, so yeah, that's about where the FGen for 0Z is showing, and you can see how concentrated it is down here. Now we have virtually nothing up here for the moment, but now this is the 3 kilometer NAM. Now watch as we move in the hours. This is 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 midnight. And look at all of that stuff that's over northern Jersey, New York City, moving up into the lower Hudson Valley. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. My God. I mean, like, this is like, if this comes to pass, 2 o'clock tomorrow in the morning on Tuesday morning, this is Armageddon in terms of FGen and Omega energy. But then look how quickly this is 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It's gone. It's out of here by 4 a.m. It's now moving up into Timothy Veltman land
Yeah.
at 5 o'clock.
And also
So
and
so
also
I would
centered up in the Catskills there. It gets in for about a few hours. It's going to snow very
yeah.
hard there for several hours at least, uh, where you're going to
You
get
know where I'd like to be in
very
this.
strong amount snow rates.
I would love to be at the Mohonk Mountain House, which is um, just west of New Paltz at an altitude of approximately 1,500 feet above sea level. And they have been keeping weather records at the Mohonk House Show since the 1890s. In fact, they have one of the longest continuous cooperative a bit of record keeping, a lot of it being done by a guy who was up there for many, many, many decades, not years, but decades, one of the original owners of the Mountain House, Dan Smiley. And in fact, I did a report for News 12. It's 10 years ago now. They have the rain gauge, the original rain gauge that was given to them by the United States Weather Bureau. You could actually see it engraved on the side of the rain gauge from like 1893. And they've had a lot of interesting and remarkable weather anomalies over the years. And this certainly is going to be one of those tonight, where I could just imagine what it's going to be like at the Mountain House tonight with all of this Omega, all of this activity. And again, they certainly have the altitude at 1,500 feet. They certainly are going to see a lot of snow tonight for a relatively short interval of time. And again, down here where I am, I'm only at a measly 450 feet above sea level, and that's not quite enough. I would not be surprised though if I saw tomorrow morning some wet snowflakes, falling or mixing with the lingering rain showers. But this certainly seems to be. Let me see what the. Let me go back to the 12 kilometer NAM, and you can see. Look at a 12 kilometer. My goodness, all of this just ramming through for overnight tonight. So again, around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Then by 4 o'clock, it lifts right up away to our north. But that's going to be the time. That's going to be when all the action is going to be taking place. At least in my backyard, will be sometime around 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And again, wouldn't be surprised if we heard some rumbles, see some flashes of lightning with this, because there's a lot of it. And for those of you who are saying, well, what about the GFS? Let's see what the GFS too, pretty much. Although the thing I don't like about the GFS, as compared to the NAM is they don't do it in hourly increments. They do it in 6 hourly increments. So there is 6Z or 2 a.m. pretty much in the same ballpark as what the NAM is suggesting, maybe a little faster. But the next time frame is 8 o'clock in the morning, and like a boomerang, boing, that area of energy goes all the way north of New England and up into southern Quebec. So we're really gonna see, I think, a lot of activity coming our way for a few hours in the overnight hours tonight.
I'm just want to really just thank James Harris for hitting super chat. By the way, thank you, Jimmy, and please be safe, okay? Because you don't have a big truck. You got that, you got your nice little vehicle there. Uh, you know, stay in control on the road, okay? Try to get there before it goes crazy. So don't wait till the last minute to head up toward Binghamton if that is your destination of choice. All right, let's go back. There's a couple of uh, astronomy questions on the board, but let's
Well,
just.
I see one from Billy the Kid about talking to Tyler Fengia. He said, "I've read a disturbing article about a coronal mass ejection coming our way." And first of all, there is no coronal mass ejection coming our way. There was a major flare on the sun over the weekend, but it was coming over the solar rim, and a lot of a lot of the subatomic material from that is now moving, if you will, sideways relative to the Earth or from the sun. In other words, it's all going to miss us. So we're not going to. Now, this doesn't mean that the solar activity that caused that is moving on to the solar disk, or we're beginning to see it from here on the Earth. So in a few days, if that continues to be very active, in a few days, Joe, that area of disturbed weather on the sun, that sunspot or a series of sunspots, may be enough so that if it's closer to the center of the disk of the sun, then it may hurl a coronal mass ejection or a shot of energy from the sun toward our area. But yeah, and he says the article theorizes, this is according to Billy the Kid now, that hackers may work in tandem with the coronal mass ejection to disable our power grid. Now, I don't understand how you can do something like that. I mean, when these things come, and there was a massive uh, coronal mass ejection back in 1989 that shut down Hydro Quebec in Canada, caused a massive power outage up in Quebec for 9 hours. That was due to the sun. There's no way that you can control anything here. I mean, we're just, we're just, as Tom Grant once said, with a snowstorm that went unpredicted, we're just observers. We have no way of utilizing or working in tandem with such activity coming from the sun to specifically disable any one power grid. When these major eruptions on the sun occur, they occur, and in fact, when we see them taking place, what we call SIDS, sudden ionospheric disturbances, when they do blackout radio communication, the main mass of stuff still has a couple of more days to come our way. And with that knowledge, I'm sure the power companies will do something like shut down various parts of their systems to prevent any major breakdown. I mean, these are people who love, to talk about Armageddon, so to speak. But
I'm
we're far more sophisticated now.
dreaming of an apocalypse, just like the
It
ones
don't.
I've wished before. I mean, d- yeah, I kind of wish there were apocalypse futures because I'd be short them all day long. I, you're right. It's like how do these people sit around and well, I know the people who write these stories are just handed some copy of something and they're told by their bosses, okay, write today's version of the end of the world. I mean, that's all those stories are. I saw something about the start of hurricane season coming up because the outlooks are going to start on May 15th or when, it's since they moved them back from June 1st. Oh, but there's disturbed weather in the Bermuda Triangle that could become a tropical storm. I actually read this a few days ago. There's disturbed weather, but that could become the season's first tropical storm here in April, like it happened a few years ago. But oh darn! But it's going to probably just weaken or stay out to sea or whatever it is. Like, really?
Yeah.
Seriously? What's tomorrow's theme going to be? I'm sorry, I just can't live my
And
life
this
that way.
and
But
this
go on.
and this is not something that's new. I mean, we go back to 1910. 1910, Halley's Comet. The tail of the comet was predicted to pass over the Earth. For days and days in advance, there were all kinds of stories about how that was going to cause poison the
Ti-
atmosphere and
Tidal waves and
causing all kind. And when the comet came and it went and took the tail with it and everything else, a lot of people were seemingly disappointed. Like, oh, what happened?
I'm
I thought
sorry
we
you
were
didn't
going to
get the
have
I'm sorry you didn't get the apocalypse you wished for.
exactly. So this is not anything new.
No,
It's not anything new.
it this this goes back to the beginning of since Adam and Eve went apple picking, they've been looking for the end of the world. It still hasn't happened.
I mean, I mean, to Billy the Kid and to all the people out there who, for example, are worried about these, I personally am hoping, Joe, for a massive, major coronal mass ejection, one that'll hit the Earth square on. You know why?
Why?
Because if that happens, then it will give us an opportunity. If it's a really a vibrant push of subatomic particles into the northern and southern magnetic poles of the Earth, it may give us a chance to see down at our latitudes a fabulous display of the northern lights, which has happened not too many times, at least in my lifetime. I'd love to see the northern lights, and that's the way to do it, is to
Who
get a
wouldn't?
major solar flare to erupt. And this area that Billy the Kid alluded to just on the chat board, it's now only coming around the edge of the sun and is now rotating maybe in a few days into a position where it'll be squarely in the middle of the sun. And when it's squarely in the middle, that's when I would say to the sun, come on, give it your best. Come on, do it, do it, do it,
Yep.
do it. And if we get one of those really big X-class flares, hopefully we would have a shot at seeing a beautiful northern lights display maybe this weekend. It takes a couple of days after they fire toward the Earth all of this stuff, and the weather doesn't look all that bad for this weekend. As long as it's clear, you'll be able to possibly see it. So it might get exciting later in the week if we get one
Well,
of these big
I was just
solar explosions.
I was just going to say all of that will happen the way you want it to happen, and then it'll wind up being overcast. So,
Yeah,
uh,
that's how it always happens.
all right, let's let's go back to the NAM because I got the upper air, and that's a sharp look at that negatively tilted trough. That's impressive. That's an impressive negatively tilted trough from the upper low that is forming in northern Wisconsin. That was at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and the whole trough just stays negative, and then a strong cutoff low forms there over Lake Huron and drops into over Lake Ontario. Now, if that upper low, instead of doing that, if it had dropped down to say Pittsburgh into Pennsylvania, uh, this would have, I mean, as dynamic as everything is right now, this would even be more dynamic and impact areas further to the east if that were the case. The upper low is pretty far north and west, but you notice it's a very cold upper low. The heights go down, Joe, to 528, 528 upper low in Lake Ontario on the 18th of April, which is tomorrow afternoon. Um, yeah, that's pretty strong. That's unusually strong. And the dark blue reflects that because it's reflecting how below normal those heights are. So if you see that dark patch of blue there, it's telling you, hey, that's really way out of whack. And then that trough is going to eventually just lift on out to the northeast, and we should get into a nice ridge position. Following that, the next one gets deflected well to our north and west. I don't know if we're going to get much of anything from a weather front that's going to try to approach here on Thursday. And it's kind of a flattish flow going into Friday. So that's a plus. Like to take, and I get into a nice ridge. I'm really looking forward to that because I'm in the 40s right now, and I'm having trouble with this since I was in the where I was in the in Florida, sitting in the near 80 every day last week. So I'm actually uh, quite cold at the moment. I'm trying to get
Well,
rid of this.
that's the other thing about this is that in the wake of it for tomorrow and for Wednesday, the temperatures are going to be well tomorrow here in the Hudson Valley, and it's going to be about 10 to 15 degrees below normal. We should be in the mid 60s by now, and it's only going to be near 50 tomorrow for a high. We'll get a little bit higher than that. We'll be around 55 on Wednesday, and then finally we get back closer to normal, maybe around 60 or low 60s on Thursday, and then everybody is jumping up and down about Friday. Oh, Friday, we're going to be at 70. We're going to be at 70. Well, maybe not. Maybe more like upper
Watch the
60s,
yeah
perhaps.
watch the back that's it's a bit of a backdoorish front that hangs around.
Right.
But ultimately, a ridge does build in the east over the weekend, so at least it does warm up upstairs. In fact, the strongest part of the ridge is actually in upstate New York and in southeastern Canada. So let's see how that translates on the surface, and we'll start with tonight. And there's the radar presentation on the GFS at 8 o'clock tonight with the low sitting just east of Norfolk, Virginia. And you can see those big patches of heavy rain and the darker blues that are developing between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. in northeastern Pennsylvania and throughout the uh, Catskills. The upper Hudson Valley gets into that dark blue patch too. The low, Joe, is tracking just east of Atlantic City. It looks like the low center will cross over West Central Long Island if the GFS is correct, which means that the winds east of that low, particularly in eastern Long Island and down and especially in southeastern New England, are going to the high wind warning is going to be justified, and then the low winds up in near Hartford by tomorrow morning, and then it's up north of Vermont by tomorrow afternoon as it starts to race northeastward. So again, very fast moving out. Wednesday looks okay. Here comes this next mess for Thursday across the Great Lakes, but most of that winds up falling apart by the time it gets here. Of course, the map's having some. There we go. So some showers Thursday afternoon. The southern end of that looks overdone, but I mean, outside chance, I guess, that there could be a shower. Friday looks okay, and the models were actually showing maybe another storm heading for the northern plains. So if these maps would load for me, we could take a look at this. I'm gonna
And
wait.
Chuck Cardillo, we just got a late breaking post on the chat board. Joe, he says it's snowing very hard now in Delaware County. He has picked up a quick half an inch of snow in about 20 minutes, and the temperature right now where he is 32 degrees.
There you go. And that's what happens when you get the intensity and the vertical motions. That those temperatures, the ground level temperatures drop down 32, 33, even 34 if it's snowing hard enough. It's at night, so it's all going to stick. Meanwhile, we were the big blizzard up in North Dakota, Joe, where they got 3 feet plus in some areas. Guess what? There's another deep low, not quite like the last one, but this one, an 89 low on Saturday in southeastern North Dakota, does bring some heavy snows into the western part of the state, and they move eastward Saturday night to Sunday morning. It doesn't look like the last one. It's not quite as deep, but still, um, there's going to be some accumulating snows there again on top of what they already had. And as you said earlier, yeah, see, Joe, this front on Thursday kind of stalls out uh, to our south. There's a high over James Bay Friday that builds. There's a kind of onshore-ish. It's no big deal, but then eventually, by the time we get to Sunday, the winds start to back around a little bit, or at least they try to. Uh, so that I think will be the one issue as far as temperatures are concerned. Would be where that front is, and whether wind and maybe some clouds, if there's some clouds around, that holds temperatures down. Something that I think we'll need to evaluate when we get there toward the end of the week.
Yeah, it and a lot of the snow lovers, I'm sure, on the chat board are saying, "I knew it, I knew it. It was it. We couldn't get any of this during January or February. The kind of setup that we would want for all of this, but it had to wait until like later in the winter, early spring.
Yeah,
It's happening now. Yeah.
I know we didn't have blocking
Ah,
blocking all winter, and then it shows up. It shows up when you don't want it, because you're at the point now where it's like enough. Let's get to the warm weather. But doesn't always work out that way. Just looking really quick at some watches and warnings, in general up across the U.S. A lot of this pattern in the east is bringing unusual cold. Places fairly far south, so where the growing season has already started. So we've got um, freeze warnings and frost advisories in the middle Mississippi Valley, also in southwestern North Carolina, which I'm close to. I'm not going to chance it, so I brought some of my plants back in. I take them out, I bring them back in, I take them out, I bring them back in. Out to the west, there's a few winter weather advisories that are up, but I did notice on the radar there's a lot of precip that's come into the Pacific Northwest from Washington down into Northern California that's sweeping inland. So the rain's going to keep them busy for a little while. And as far as the radar is concerned tonight, we've got a couple of heavy thunderstorms in parts of South Florida. There's one standing severe thunderstorm warning to the southwest of Miami at the moment. And let's give this a quick refresh. We'll give one last look at our radar here. This is now at 8:20, just coming up on 8:25 Eastern Time. And there's that heavy arc of rain that is moving northward. And when it gets into Chuck Cardillo land up in the Catskills, look out, because that's when it's going to go kaboom with the big snow amounts between 8 p.m. Well, after 8 p.m. But certainly when we get into the midnight hours and the early morning hours, Chuck will wake up to a lot of snow on the ground tomorrow morning.
and this is going to be like you talk about cut and reduce visibility. These are the big flakes. These are the quarter and half dollar size flakes, not that tiny little puffy, powdery type snow that you get like in the middle of the winter when the temperatures are in the 20s. These flakes, they start coming down, and then they start coming down at the intensity that we're thinking of right now. And if you're on the roadway trying to see any distance, you're going to be in big trouble because you're not going to be able to see much of anything with that. So I wish our friend who's traveling, is it Mr. Harris?
Yes,
Uh,
James Harris.
he's on a trek. James Harris. I wish him all the best of luck traveling up to Binghamton, because in a way it's crazy. I know if you're a snow lover, though, just like the people who chase tornadoes. If you really want to do that, there's always a certain amount of danger when you chase tornadoes, and there's a very definite danger, I think, tonight in chasing after heavy snowfall amounts. Again, because of the fact that it's a wet, slushy snow, the roads could be a bit more slipperier than normal. And again, because of those big flakes, the visibility is really going to be cut down tonight. So be very careful if you're planning to do any commuting, James, in this type of weather, especially late tonight.
Paul Roman, who's is in Ulster County. Joe, he's got snow there where he is. I don't know what Paul. I don't know what's your elevation. I'm just kind of curious. So if you could just put that on the chat board, that would be excellent to know. Uh, did I used to chase snow when I was younger? Asked Tom Contino. No, I never. I'm
No,
trying to. No,
we never had any snow when we were younger. We never had any snow to
we never
chase.
had snow to chase. We didn't have. We also we didn't have snow to chase. We didn't have driver's licenses at the time. Uh, and then uh, I didn't have to chase because I lived on Long Island for 30 years, and at least from 2000 on, it all came to me, which was great. for the in that 20-year stretch. So, and then I got, now I'm old and crabby. I'm not getting in a car to chase snow. Although I will say this, I've thought about this, and the one thing that stops me is getting down. I have a four-wheel drive truck, so climbing it would not be a problem. But I'm, I'm I thought a couple of times this past winter to go up Brasstown Bald, which is which is just under 5,000 feet elevation, and take the road up there. But I drove it up. I drove up there on a nice day, and that's a steep climb. And then you got to go down there, go down on the way back. So it's a steep drop. I probably would make it. I don't know if I would make it down. Just I don't know if I would. So I that kind of it kind of shied me away from the idea of chasing it to do some local chasing. I but I did
Here's one of the things that
it
you
did
and I,
cross it did
one
cross
of the
my
things you and
mind.
I have got. We're going to have to do this once in our lives. We have to get together and
Oh the
book a hotel somewhere in the snow belt area.
oh yeah, that I'll do.
Near the
That
lee side of Ontario or Erie, and just go there, open up the window, sit back, relax, and look out and watch as we watch 5 and 6 inches of snow per hour. That would be, and of course we'd have to we'd have to be there for a few days, but then instead of driving and anything else, we just hire an Uber or something like that. All right, we've had our fun. Take us to the airport, and we fly back out of the snow belt to you know wherever you to Georgia or me back to New York.
yeah, that I will do. I will definitely do the lakes thing. But that's got that you almost have to do on on short notice because
Right.
you have to see the setup, and then at some point you got to make a decision, and hopefully you know your forecast pans out when you make a decision like that. Well, especially for me because I have to drive like 1,000 miles to get there.
Oh no, you'd fly up, Joe.
I don't know.
For once in your life, come on. You've accrued so much money being the king of all media.
Oh yeah. Just accrued is the right word. Oh God. Uh, uh, okay. Um, so let's uh, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy. While that's loading up, breaking news, Joe Rayo. When uh,
Yes.
when I was away, actually they did it on they started Friday and they haven't finished, but the I'm very excited over the fact that I'm going to have broadband soon. They came here and they laid the wire down in the street on the road. I wouldn't call it what I have a dirt road. Okay, I don't have a street here. It's a dirt road. And well, they came down like they said they were going to do, uh, and they ran the wire from the street up into my property. So now they just got to run it the last 50 feet from where the wire is, or 100 feet to the house. And they're still working. So they didn't work today because of the rain, but they still got stuff to do here. So I'm imagining tomorrow or Wednesday they may bring the wire, will be brought to the house, and then I just have to wait for somebody to, I guess they have to have somebody to come in. Somebody else comes to take the wire and you know put it inside your house. So it's all when I heard about this back 5 or 6 weeks ago, they said it would be about 4 to 6 months. I'm thinking it's going to be closer to the 4 than the 6 at the rate they're going. So
Is now the question is, did they get Sam Drucker and Ike Gotze
yeah,
to to look to, to give their permission to do this or whatever?
no, but they brought all their work parts from they bought all their work parts from Mr. Haney,
Oh no. And they
who
have
by
Mr.
the way
Mr. Kimball.
yeah, Mr. Kimball, of course. I was watching one of the Back to the Future movies, and Mr. Haney was in it when they went back to like the
Right.
eight.
That was Back to the Future number. That was number three.
Right, in number
The third.
three,
The third Back to the
and
Future.
and, and
Yeah.
Mr. Haney was in it. Oh, and another thing I will tell you is, so I was driving. I drove to Florida and back, and it was 680 miles each way. Okay, which I did in actually great time because it was all highway. I mean, very little side road action. Get on the highway, straight shoot down 75, then get on the Florida Turnpike, uh, and then um, and then I was there. So Port St. Lucie, and then I drove back. So what was so interesting to me was the gasoline prices on the way down. So when I left in the morning here, when I left, I gassed up. I paid 3.31 a gallon. Okay, uh, I had to drop my house plants off at my daughter's house, so I topped my tank off there at 3.99. All right, so there was a 60 cent difference. Then I'm driving down through Georgia, and at exit 144 on Route 75, there's a Bucky's gas station. Now I don't know if you know about the Bucky's chain, okay, but they're very big in Texas, and they've opened up a couple in Georgia, and the gas stations have like 90 pumps, okay, of
Oh,
all the gas you could, different kinds of gas that you could think of, and no trucks. And I've known people that have been to Bucky's, and everybody has said this. You go, they got like a little supermarket. You go in there, and they have a car wash. The um, the food there, you go in, they can make sandwiches for you. The food is actually quite good. It's like a uniform thing. Anytime I brought the subject of Bucky's comes up, they say, "Oh, the food there is great." So anyway, unfortunately, the billboard for the Bucky's, I didn't see it until I was virtually on top of the exit going down, and I didn't need gas at that point, so I didn't stop. But the gas there was $3.19 a gallon.
wow.
Okay. And
Wow.
in that 10-mile span from where Bucky's is, all the other gas stations are competing. So everybody was down to 319, 325.
Yeah.
You get out of that range as I'm going further south, 369, 379. I cross into Florida. It's four. The Florida was between 409 and 419 the rest of the way. Um, Coming back, I got gas. I didn't go to Bucky's because the fog was so thick driving back Sunday morning. I couldn't see, you know, past the exit ramp, and I didn't know, if I had to go right or left. So I just said, you know what, I'll just get gas on the next exit. And one of the competing stations that I was able to physically see it, it was 319. So it was interesting to see the big ups and downs and prices as I made my drive. But if you ever drive 75 in Georgia, Bucky's is at 144. So the next time I head down south, and the other thing, Joe, is it's always an experience when you drive down to Georgia, down to southern Georgia to Florida, is once you get down into the southern part, it's billboard land. One billboard uh, after another, including the pecan place, which has the signs mimicking Aunt Sally as you go down.
Yeah.
50
Yeah.
miles, 30 miles, and when you
I
get
don't
real
know.
close, just next exit, you know,
Yeah.
uh, you know, take left, go 1 block. It's like billboard after billboard after billboard.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hilarious. And then of course there's the uh, uh, the lawyer's sign, which is come in, buy one divorce, get one free, and followed by the billboard for the Lion's Den, which is the adult superstore, and the billboard that follows is the vasectomy billboard. It's just crazy stuff. Just crazy stuff.
Yeah. Well, we all know that the gas companies, the petroleum people, they have us by the you know what. It is my I have of the opinion. You talk about gouging. I'm sure they could. Every gas company, ExxonMobil and
They
whatever, they could probably be selling gas at
they
like
don't,
uh,
Joe.
one
Joe,
half.
Joe, the major oil companies, they do not own the gas stations. They don't own the gas stations. They just they stopped owning gas stations decades ago.
No, but what I'm saying is that the amounts that they're you know charging, or the amount that they're $140 a barrel or something like that. I'm sure that it could go down if they wanted to. They could make it go down
You know,
much more than what it is. And
it's not that easy. It's a world market. It's a market price. And
well, wait till you see what
everybody in the world
I've been keeping
is
this as
competing in the oil market to buy oil. That's just how it
I've
works.
been keeping this a secret. I've been keeping this a secret, but in 2 weeks I'm going to appear on that TV show Shark Tank, and I've developed a little capsule, Joe. And all you need to do is put this capsule into a 1 gallon or 2 gallon, sized, what you get at the water cooler, those big, you know, containers. Drop this capsule into a thing of water, and it immediately turns into 93 octane gas. And once this is out, I'm going to sell these little capsules.
Oh, you are. Oh, I'm sure you are.
We're going to roll, those the so-called sharks that they sit behind the desk or whatever like that. I'm going to have them roll a car out with no gas in it. We're going to roll it out, and then we're going to drop the tablet into this vat of water, pour it all into the gas tank, and then start the car right up. And we're going to say, ladies and gentlemen, here it is. This is going to revolutionize and I guarantee you that the next day I'm going to hear from the United States. What is it? Department of Energy or whatever like that. You have to let us see this first. And I don't know. Wouldn't it be amazing if that were the case? If
It should
somebody developed something like that?
it should be so simple. Christinapedia Bucky's is. I actually looked today to see if there were any in they haven't expanded there yet. There's two in Georgia. There's the one I went by at exit 144, and then there's another one in North Georgia. That's about, if I got to 75, it's another maybe 70 miles or so to the north. It's closer to the Tennessee line. Those are the first. I think the rest of them are all in Texas, and they are planning to expand, but they're so big because they got 90 gas pumps. So it's they're big. They're much bigger than this. Even when you drive down south and you see the pilots and the Love gas stations, those accommodate uh, truckers. Bucky's I believe does not. I think it's just cars. So
And don't
um,
forget to look. Don't forget to look when you're looking for a Bucky's for the mascot, which is a gigantic beaver
Beaver,
wearing a red baseball cap,
yes. I have, by the way,
which is
Tom Contino wants to know. I have a Nissan Frontier. I get 20 miles to the gallon. So except for these occasional road trips that I do, it's all local driving. So I fill my gas tank up maybe once every 2 weeks, which is fine. And the gas up here in the mountains is cheap where I am. So I'm probably the cheapest spot. Well, now with except for where the Bucky's is, I'm the uh, the the cheapest spot in the state. And we don't
you
have a
could look. You
and we
could
don't
look
have a gas tax
if
here
you.
anyway. So which is at the moment.
I'm looking. I'm looking on Wikipedia, and they have a picture of a Bucky's in Terrell, Texas, and it's everything that Joe just mentioned, folks. You could see that it's incredible. Yeah, I could see them putting like 60 or 70 gas pumps underneath this gigantic awning, I guess you can call it, and immediately adjacent to that is Bucky's, where you can go inside and buy food or whatever. It's incredible. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, the
Gas stations or
next
locations are in Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. Additional locations are currently under development in Colorado, Kentucky, Mississippi, Missouri, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Plans for an additional location in North Carolina were shelved in early 2021, and the company is owned by Arch, Beaver, Applin, and Don Wasick. And I guess that's why we have the beaver as the mascot. It's named after Arch.
Yes, and yeah, they had a 60 Minutes a couple of months ago did a story about them. So if you want to look more, I'm sure if you go to CBS's website or the 60 Minutes website, you could find that story about the Buckies and the history of it. But just thought it was kind of interesting. Now let's get to Briller Jeopardy here, as we are approaching 8:42 Eastern Time. And tonight, let's run through the chairman has centered this on the late great Estelle Harris, who passed away last week, I believe, or 2 weeks ago. Played George Costanza's mom on Seinfeld. So,
Yes.
on that note, who was the first person eliminated from the contest on contest in capital letters, by the way, on Seinfeld?
I think it was Kramer.
That is correct. Estelle Harris appeared in
I'm
how?
out.
Yeah, Estelle Harris appeared in how many episodes of Seinfeld? Was it 7, 17, or 27?
I would say 27.
And if you said 27, you would have been correct. Who did Kramer punch at the fantasy baseball camp?
Mickey Mantle.
That is correct. If George was a porn star, he would call himself.
Buck naked.
That works. Um, uh, okay. What did that just reminded me of a ad I saw for a drag queen show in Fire Island, and the star of the show was her name was Hedda Lettuce.
Actually, you know what I think would be a great name for a burlesque performer, a woman burlesque performer? Zuzu's Pedals.
Yes. Uh,
You
what did Kramer start using to shave with instead of shaving cream?
butter, margarine,
Nice.
stick butter.
What video game was George a master of?
Oh, Frogger.
Correct. You know your Seinfeld. Why did Elaine break up with Keith? Why did Elaine break up with Keith Hernandez?
That's a good question. Why did she break up with Keith Hernandez? I think Keith Hernandez said I would get to first base, and he said you wouldn't even. Elaine said you wouldn't get to first base with me, and he said not only would I get to first base, but I'd round second. I'd be coming around third and coming home. I don't remember why did she break up with Keith Hernandez?
He smoked.
I mean, I know the episode, but I don't remember specifically why she broke up with him.
He smoked.
That's right, he did smoke, and not only that. Sometimes on certain videos of certain games, you can see,
yeah,
you'll see him smoking. Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Who was deported back? By the way, if you look at some old film footage of old ball players of the dugout shots, they used to smoke all the time. Who was deported back to Pakistan?
Babu.
Yes, correct. What does
He's a very, very bad man.
Yes.
Very, very bad.
What does Elaine do with Mr. Pitt's pretzels?
With Mr. Pitt's what pretzels?
Pretzels. And I used to do this too with my pretzels.
God, I know what she did with his socks, and I know she got him to carry the one of the ropes on the Thanksgiving Day his pretzels.
Yes.
I don't remember what exact. I don't remember what episode what you're making reference to.
I
What did you do with his pretzels?
remove the salt.
It sounds like something Mr. Pitt would want.
What is
With tweezers, probably.
yes? What is Newman's favorite candy?
Oh God, what is his favorite candy? It's not. I know this is wrong because it was the guy at the car place that George was getting all upset about. I'll say Twix. I know it's wrong, but what Butterfinger? I don't know.
Chunky.
Chunky?
Chunky.
Yeah, that would make sense for Newman.
And how many episodes are in the Seinfeld series? That's the bonus
I
question.
don't know. It was like 9 years. And I'll take a. Do I get a
Well,
leeway or
yeah,
whatever?
no,
Or,
I'll give you the numbers: 90, 120, 150, or 180.
I I'm tempted to say 180 because I know it was on for like 9 years. But I'm saying to myself, maybe they didn't do 20 episodes a year or whatever. So maybe it was 150. I'll say 150.
You should have said 180.
Oh well.
That's the second time in the
Wah
last two
wah
weeks that
wah.
you expounded on
I
your.
had it and I dropped it.
That's correct. You had it, but you
Yeah.
dropped it. Okie
Yeah.
dokie. So.
And and it's funny. I wasn't a fan of that show when it was on the network. When it was on the network on NBC, I never watched it. I watched it in the final year because in the final year, all of the people at News 12 Westchester, whenever that show was on, they would all gather in the green room or whatever. This was before we all had TVs at our individual desks or whatever. We could watch whatever we want to watch. So they all gathered in the green room. And out of curiosity, one night I went in and I watched an episode, found it funny. And then when it went into syndication, I started watching it in syndication. And that's where I picked up all of the stuff about, all these little facts about Seinfeld.
Yeah,
But
I watched it. I watched it some of the time in the latter seasons, but I was never really too interested in wanting to see repeats of it. So I honestly, the episodes that I saw, like the last couple of years, I watched it and it was funny and I enjoyed it, but I had no desire to go back and watch the show from the beginning. Uh, so I'm watching
well, the
Outlander
first 3 years,
right now on
the first 3 years,
Netflix.
the first 3 years of Seinfeld, I think it was on for 9 years. The first 3 or 4 years, I wasn't really into it. I didn't find it overly funny, but it really came into its own by about the fourth or fifth season. And then by the time we got to like season 6, 7, the great part about those seasons were that you had three different storylines going on, and at the end they all clashed. They all came together, and that's what made those seasons like really very, very funny. So they have to do a sitcom about you and I, Joe.
God, who'd play you?
I don't know. We'd have to. Why don't we throw it out to the audience? Who would play Joe and who would play Joe?
Well, they used to tell me when I didn't have my goatee, and I was younger, that John Ritter would have been a perfect, like physical match for me, and I was okay with that. Uh, Saw him on a couple episodes of Law and Order playing an evil character, and I got to like him even more. But that was mentioned to me a couple of times. Um, in my younger days, when I was in my 20s and lived in New Orleans, this actually happened a few times. Um, and I don't think any of those people were drinking, but a couple of people had come up a few times where they came up to me and thought I was Tom Selleck.
Really?
That I didn't get. I personally, I mean, I guess because I had a mustache and all the rest of it, and then my hair was darker or lighter depending on the time of year and how much bleach I used. But the
Tom Selleck is now doing commercials for reverse mortgages,
yes. Well,
and
yeah, and he's got blue,
and
and he's doing Blue Blood. He does Blue Bloods. I think that show's still on CBS.
and
Uh,
he says something like, he says, "Listen, this isn't my first rodeo." Whatever the hell that means. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I mean, those are the only, certainly Tom Selleck can't play me now. I've aged gracefully, but he's aged better than I have. And yeah, I don't know, Joe. Who would play you?
Kenny Salerno says he reminds him of Lieutenant Monahan from Quincy.
Hmm.
Now, since I never watched Quincy, I don't know who Lieutenant Monahan is. So,
I have a vague vision right now of who it might be, but I don't know the name of the actor. I could sort of like see it in my fuzzy memory. I think I watched one or two episodes of Quincy in my day, and that was it. Um, anyway, I'm watching Outlander right now on Netflix. I was binge watching it for the second time because I had to refresh myself before a new season starts. And I think next week Ozark comes back for the second half of its last season, so I am really looking forward to that because that show
you know what?
is I think it's great. But anyway, that's me.
There's only one show now on prime time that I'm really hooked on, and unfortunately, they're into the final like 4 or 5 episodes, and it's going to be it for it. It's been on for like 6 years. On Thursday night on CBS, Bull. You ever watch that show?
No, I watch
Oh
nothing.
well,
I don't I will hardly watch anything on a standard on the old on any of the legacy networks.
all right. Well, I like Bull. The show Bull reminds me of the TV show that was on many years ago on ABC, The Practice. I really enjoyed that show, and Bull is sort of like that show as well.
Yeah,
So, but this is the final season for Bull. So,
Christina Pedia says I've she's still Mrs. Maisel. I've watched all of Mrs. Maisel from start to the through the last season that just ran. Very funny show. Not every episode hits home runs, uh, but uh, but but many do, and they really do a good job of with old stereotypes and showing the life in the early '60s in New York City. I love the sets. I love the clothes, and the comedy is hysterical. So anyhow, uh, that's it for tonight. We're
okay,
done.
we're on we're on tomorrow night at 8 because I'm not going to be available. You could start at 7:30, but I won't be available until around 8 o'clock or whatever.
All right, I'll let you know if I'm how I'm feeling tomorrow. If I'm not exhausted, I'll start at I'll wait for 8 o'clock. If I am exhausted, I'll start at 7:30.
Okay,
Okay. All right. Very good.
and then I'll join in.
All right. So everybody, thanks for being here tonight. Hopefully, nothing terrible happens as all this weather moves through tonight into tomorrow morning. So be safe. And Joe and I will see you tomorrow. James Harris, you be safe chasing up near Binghamton. And thanks for the super chat hit. And see you tomorrow night, guys and gals, at 8 o'clock Eastern Time.
Night.